How exactly did Game become the laughingstock of the rap game?
I wanted to talk about this. The Game has apparently lost his house as a result of his sexual assault case.
Once upon a time, the Game was on the fast track to rap royalty. Not only was he handpicked by Dr. Dre to be the torchbearer for a new West Coast renaissance, but he was also seen as the big homie to LA's new generation of rap superstars. But nowadays, Game is one of the most mocked rappers in the industry. After conquering the Billboard charts for years, Game has become a cautionary tale for everything you should not do if you want to keep your legacy intact. That's exactly why we're doing a complete breakdown of Game's entire career, from his rise to fame to his most embarrassing crash outs. How did a near-death experience inspire Game to start rapping? How did his fallout with 50 Cent lead to a shootout in the streets of New York? And how did Game go from being one of Kendrick Lamar's biggest heroes to betraying him completely? We're also going to look at how Game's bizarre behavior, from his notorious Red Rolls White Ceiling freestyles to nonstop beefing, destroyed his reputation. And finally, we're going to take a look at how Game's desperate beef with Eminem ended up being the final nail in the coffin for his career.
Told y'all one of my only things that I wanted to do in this game was get back to Compton. And here we are.
Game was born and raised in Compton, and the city's notorious gang life culture shaped a lot of his life. Even though Game grew up in a Crip neighborhood, he joined a blood sets called the Cedar Block Pyrus as a kid. Those gang ties led Game to slinging drugs and nearly cost him his life. In October of 2001, when Game was 21 years old, he was shot 5 times during a home invasion. After waking up from a 3-day coma, Game dedicated himself to studying as many classic rap albums as possible. He vowed to turn his life around and start taking music seriously. One of Game's early mixtapes ended up in the hands of none other than Dr. Dre, also known as the godfather of LA rap. And right away, Dre saw huge potential in Game. Not only did Game have raw street credibility and authenticity that could make him a genuine rap star, but the West Coast had been starving for new blood. In the 90s, LA gangsta rap had damn near dominated hip-hop. Artists like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Tupac, and Ice Cube were some of the industry's most controversial and successful stars. But by the mid-2000s, LA was hurting for fresh talent. And when Dr. Dre encountered Game, he realized that he may have found what the city had been looking for. Dre signed Game to his label Aftermath in 2003, but Dre's business partner Jimmy Iovine had plans of his own. He came up with a master strategy to ally Game with Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, who had become the industry's biggest breakout star in years. Since 50 was an Aftermath artist and already had his own group called G-Unit, Jimmy decided that putting Game and 50 together would only supercharge Game's money-making potential. At first, Jimmy's strategy seemed to pay off. While G-Unit started off as a supergroup featuring 50 Cent, Lloyd Banks, and Tony Yayo, all rappers from Southside Jamaica, Queens, adding Game would give the group a West Coast presence. Add in Young Buck, a rapper from Nashville, Tennessee, and G-Unit would have a flag planted in damn near every major hip-hop stronghold in America: the East, the West, and the South. Jimmy Iovine called the new and improved G-Unit the new hip-hop Beatles, but low-key, that was like the Avengers too. However, Jimmy and Dre soon learned that you couldn't just Frankenstein a rap group together.
50 got jealous and kicked me out of G-Unit, and he thought that he could do what he did to Ja Rule to me. But I'm the people's champ, man. Rap's MVP. You can't get rid of me, man.
Game's debut album, The Documentary, dropped in January of 2005, and it was a massive blockbuster success. Not only did the documentary debut at #1, but it also moved 586,000 copies in its first week before going 5 times platinum. With over 5 million records sold, the documentary became a blueprint for the new West Coast renaissance and certified the Game as a force to be reckoned with. But 50 Cent was a huge part of the Game's success story. Not only did he have writing credits across the album, but he was featured on the documentary's biggest singles, Hate It or Love It and How We Do. These songs became Grammy-nominated smash hits, plus they got a lot of radio play because of 50's already established star power. But just weeks after the documentary dropped, Game and 50's relationship exploded into violence. On February 28th of 2005, 50 Cent pulled up to the Hot 97 headquarters in Manhattan and gave an interview publicly shitting on Game. Not only did 50 claim he wrote most of the songs on the documentary, but he also accused Game of being disloyal and kicked him out the group live on air.
The first 3 records he put out, I'm on them. West Side Story, How We Do, Hate It or Love It. Those are just 3 singles to date. So every record that he's selling, is based on me being on this record with him.
The thing is, Game was also in New York, and he was listening in real time as 50 was humiliating him on the radio. So Game decided to pull up on Hot 97 with his crew and confront 50 while the interview was going down. But when Game rolled up with an entourage full of Bloods, they got confronted by 50 security, leading to a full-fledged shootout on the streets of New York City.
We had on Converse and shit. So it was niggas slipping and sliding. I remember trash trucks, like we was hiding behind trash trucks and shooting back, and it was just a whole shootout outside of Hot 97 that got us banned and changed the way that Hot 97 does interviews, I think, to this day.
Thankfully, nobody in the crossfire, but Game's homie Kevin Reed from Compton was injured. The Hot 97 shootout sparked national headlines and put a bloody end to the Game's ties with G-Unit. Game fired back against 50's accusations, claiming that 50 was threatened by the runaway success of the documentary and was worried that the Game would become bigger than him. But now that 50 was an op instead of an ally, the whole world wondered how Game's career might recover. After all, most industry insiders attributed the documentary's blockbuster sales to 50's star power. But Game doubled down and went on a warpath. Instead of backing down, Game launched a scorched earth campaign when he tried to annihilate G-Unit's reputation. He launched a whole G-U-Not movement and released a blistering 15-minute diss record called 300 Bars and Runnin'.
X50, it get lonely on top. You can hate me or love me, but now the cops the only homies you got. When it's beef, we eat, we win, baloney, we pop. You sell records, but a G-Not.
The G-U-Not movement started doing so much damage to 50's brand that Game later claimed that Jimmy Iovine paid him $2 million just to stop pushing the campaign. And while Game was fully solo, he was still making his mark on the charts and the streets. Game's next 3 albums, The Doctor's Advocate, LAX, and the Red album, continued his hot streak of debuting at #1. Game's sales never quite eclipsed the juggernaut numbers that the documentary put up, but he solidified his reputation as one of the few rappers who could go to war with 50 Cent and survive the fallout.
JC! Oh, that's good! Oh, that's good!
But Game's antics started to get way more attention than his music. Ever since the start of his career, Game got constant shit for being a habitual name dropper. He had a reputation for filling his verses with references to other rappers like 50 Cent, Jay-Z, Nas, Dr. Dre, Jake, J. Cole. He literally name checks everybody. Game defended his style as paying homage, but people still criticize him for essentially clout farming all over his songs.
When I put out the track listing, I was gonna literally count the name drops myself and put a disclaimer under, like, just so you know, there are 377 name drops on the album.
And then there's Game's reputation for beefing with everybody. Game is notorious for dissing other rappers to the point that his own fans can't really follow his logic. Some fans have called Game bipolar, claiming that he changes his mind every other song.
You know, you never know what's going on with it. Like, he's one of the artists that showed me you don't actually have to have consistency. Because he'll go one way and then completely go the other way, like he bipolar or something.
He disses rappers, then denies dissing them, then disses them again. He's dissed everyone from Jay-Z to Joe Budden to Meek Mill to Lil Durk to Suge Knight to Young Thug to Chris Brown to Rick Ross to Frank Ocean to Diddy to the list goes on. And while people generally agree that Game is a talented rapper, his non-stop addiction to beef makes him look unstable and desperate. And then there's Game's quote-unquote freestyles. I'm talking about Red Rolls, White Ceiling. For years, Game's been popping up and doing radio freestyles that all begin the same way: Red Rolls, White Ceiling. And when a compilation of Game's Red Rolls, White Ceiling freestyles went viral, it turned him into an instant meme.
Red Rose, White Ceiling.
Red Rose, White Ceiling. Red Rose, White Ceiling.
Let's check it. Look, Red Rose, White Ceiling.
Captures why so many fans started to turn on Game. Even though he had commercial success, hit records, street credibility, and was one of LA's biggest gangster rappers, Game was stuck doing the same corny ass shit. Between the name drops, the constant disses, and the rinse and repeat freestyles, Game started to tank his own reputation.
Who's the best rapper on the West Coast today?
Game.
But the thing that really hurt his career was him betraying rappers from his own city. I mentioned earlier how Game carried a flag for LA rappers after a generational drought. That made a whole new generation of rising LA rappers look up to him as inspiration. The two most important examples of this are Kendrick Lamar and the late Nipsey Hussle. For years, Kendrick and Game had a tight relationship. Not only did they share a street affiliation through their respective hoods, but Game enlisted a young Kendrick for some of his first big name features on songs like The City. In August of 2011, Game even linked up with other West Coast legends like Dre and Snoop to pass Kendrick the torch and crown him the next leader of LA hip-hop. Kendrick even wrote a whole verse dedicated to Game on the song Black Boys Fly, where he credited Game with inspiring his own hustle.
It's 2004 and I'm hearing the people roar. For the name of the game, they line in front of the store.
But in 2015, their relationship became way more complicated. That's when Game collaborated with Drake on the song 100, just as the behind-the-scenes tensions between Kendrick and Drake were reaching a boiling point. The problem wasn't that Game was making music with Drake, it's that Game pretty much let Drake diss Kendrick on his song.
I would have all of your fans if I didn't go poppin', I stayed on some conscious shit.
And adding insult to injury, Game brought Drake down to Compton to shoot the music video, which means he pretty much gave Drake the green light to diss Kendrick in his own city. This was a huge violation and a major show of disrespect. After showing Kendrick love for years, Game low-key backstabs him and the relationship never recovered. Fans also noticed that Game moved super shady after the death of Nipsey Hussle. Game and Nip worked together for years, even though both artists claimed rival gang sets. While Nipsey was a rolling 60s Crip, both Game and Nip were outspoken about the mutual respect they had for one another. When Nipsey was brutally murdered in 2019, Game was extremely emotional. He responded to the news by posting a real-time breakdown while he was driving around LA.
Why niggas do the homie like that, man? At his own motherfucking stop. In his own fucking hood, man. Just try to do good for niggas, man. It's crazy, man.
But not long after, Game got accused of trying to co-opt Nipsey's legacy for himself. He announced that he was founding a new label, Prolific Records, as a tribute to one of Nip's most well-known catchphrases. But fans noticed that Game was flat out intimidating Nipsey's flow and cadence in certain songs. Was Game paying homage like he claimed, or was he trying to capitalize on the grief around Nip's? And making things even worse, Game's manager in Wack 100 was one of Nip's most vocal haters. Just months after Nip passed away, Wack made controversial comments where he kicked dirt on Nipsey's legacy. Quote, "The man died with 1 million followers. No radio hits, no platinum hits, no world tours. After he died, he went platinum, sold a bunch of records, followers went up 9-10 million. First of all, we gotta define what a legend is and what it ain't." Wack continued to make out-of-pocket comments about Nipsey Hussle. Wack 100 not only defended Eric Holder, the man who shot Nip, but also claimed he had a copy of Nipsey's tape. And while Wack continued to Nip in interview after interview, Game did absolutely nothing to stand up for his dead homie. It seemed like Game was more addicted to clout chasing than standing up for his city.
Spoke about Game, and was there anybody that you felt like you left on stage, or you was good with it?
No, I was good. It was perfect.
But the thing that really cemented Game's downfall was his Super Bowl crash out. In 2002, Dr. Dre headlined the Super Bowl halftime show in LA. Dre brought out damn near every A-list artist he's produced for: Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent, Mary J. Blige, and Anderson .Paak. But people couldn't help notice that the Game was missing from the lineup. Game responded by crashing out in every interview that he's had. Game wasn't just mad he wasn't invited to perform, he was pissed that his biggest op, 50 Cent, got the call instead of him. And for a show that was billed as a victory lap for LA hip-hop, being passed over for non-LA artists like 50 and Eminem cut Game deep.
The real reason I wasn't on the Super Bowl is because I'm not a safe artist. You don't know what Game gonna do when you get up there. We on the West Coast are the only that have this crab in the barrel mentality where we wanna keep down or don't do things based on what somebody else might think it looks like. I was hurt by that.
But Game kept going. After airing out his mentor Dr. Dre for not riding with him, Game decided to do everything he could to start beef with Dre's other protege, Eminem. In an unhinged 10.5-minute diss track called Black Slim Shady, Game tried to provoke a response out of M.
23 years still ain't penetrating the culture. You are not top 5 in mine, big or pot eyes. No Andre, no Nas, stop telling white lies.
But instead of triggering an all-out war with hip-hop's craziest white boy, all Game got was crickets. Fans criticized Black Slim Shady for sounding like a desperate cry for attention instead of a scathing diss track, and Eminem just ignored the whole thing. It was a brutal wake-up call that showed just how far Game had fallen. After hitting a streak of #1 albums and hit records early in his career, Game had become irrelevant. Like, Eminem's usually down to battle with everybody, but the fact that he just ignored Game made it look like he just didn't respect him enough for a response. And then there was Game's reaction to the Kendrick Drake beef. Like I mentioned before, Game played a key role in letting Drake diss Kendrick on one of his songs years ago. While Kendrick rallied to his side with Not Like Us, Game insisted on remaining neutral, and the entire industry noticed when Game did not get an invite to Kendrick's historic Juneteenth pop-out concert. While Kendrick used the show to put rival gang sets together on stage, Game was nowhere near the building, and everybody took that as a sign that Kendrick and much of LA was done with Game's.
Don't put my name in shit unless you hear me say it. And I ain't got, and anybody that know me know, I ain't got no motherfucking problem saying how I feel about no nigga. If you want to say, you know, oh, Game pick this side and pick that side, Game pick Game side.
Game once held the torch for the entire West Coast in his hands. But after years of shady betrayals and corny antics, Game had become a pariah in his own city, and if we're being real, it's probably too late for him to make a comeback.